Today I'm lucky enough to have Peter Gower with me, and he is the past and present president of the Kingston Historical Society. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Welcome to Kingston.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. And I really enjoyed it. I got here last night. We went around, we took pictures of the CP rail and John A. Macdonald train. And we've been here, my wife and I had been here a couple times in the past because I had a construction project up in Ottawa.
Okay.
So I was going back and forth between Toronto and Ottawa, train and plane and car. And we would stay here periodically with our youngest son, who loves Kingston. And so he always wanted us to come and go out on the water. So it was really a pleasure to come back.
Good.
And been here in a number of years. You know, tell us a little bit, and this was before the show started, you started and you were talking about, which I wanted to hit on, talk about the Historical Society and sort of the history of just the society, because I really think that's interesting and where it is today.
Yeah, well, the Society is one of the oldest ones in Ontario. We were founded in 1893, mainly by Queen's professors and religious leaders. It's interesting. And I think it was because of the interest that was raised by the death and then the burial here of Sir John A. Macdonald. He, some of those people, they were older, almost all men, I hate to say, but they were more elderly, and they would have been brought up in a Kingston where they saw Macdonald as, first of all, a councillor in this building, then as their Member of Parliament.
Right behind us.
Right there, yep. Then as their Member of Parliament, then as the federal Member of Parliament, and then as their Prime Minister for so many years. And the funeral, of course, the funeral itself was in Ottawa, but the burial was out at our Cataraqui Cemetery. And I think that got a lot of people thinking, you know, when I was young, I remember, Sir John, when I was young, I met people who'd been slaves when they came up.
Wow.
I met people who were here. In fact, my mum was here when we were bombarded by the Americans in 1812. And this sort of interest, I think, got people together.
Right.
And the society has been going pretty well continuously since then. It had its ups and downs. And the two world wars, of course, slowed things down. But now it's a pretty thriving group.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's so important. And, you know, coming up, I was actually reading the history. And one of the things that we wanted to get you on the show right away, because we're doing a cross East Coast tour. So we're going across the East tour, and we're going to see a number from New Brunswick to Halifax. We're heading into St. John's. We're going to go into Montreal. So we got a really full list of shows coming up. And I said to the guys, I said, you know what? Kingston, because I had learned this on my trips here, Kingston was the first capital of the province of Canada, right? And so I said, what a great way to start it off is talk about sort of the formation of Canada.
Yeah, it's an interesting choice as to what happened. And in looking at what happened elsewhere, the fact that we didn't stay as capital really wasn't surprising. I think you have to take yourself back to 19th century British politicians who were about to start an empire. And it wasn't planned, but they knew what they wanted to do. And amongst the things they wanted was their colonies had to be English speaking. Their colonies had to be reasonably democratic, because that's what they felt England was. Their colonies had to be Anglican. And there were probably some other things as well. So when they realized there was sort of a mess that we got into here, and as you know, they asked Lord Durham to do a survey to find out just what the problem was. And when he came forward with some suggestions, I think that those were the three main things that they wanted. And so then they had the problem, well, where will the capital city be? And when you're sitting in London, England, in reasonably nice weather, and I lived there for long enough that, you know, we don't get Canadian extremes, we don't get equatorial extremes in London. You have a river which runs through it, which, you know, you can put a dividing line down the middle of. All these things, they have no idea of what Canada was like. That was shown a few years before, when at the end of the War of 1812, the end of the American colonies leaving us, the dividing line between the colonies was, quote, down the middle of the St. Lawrence. Well, you know that once you get to Brockville, the St. Lawrence is 1,000 islands. Yeah. Totally impossible. And this was the sort of thing that I think they had difficulty with. So they then had to look and say, well, where are the possibilities for a capital? And they look on the map and, well, there's Halifax, there's Quebec City, there's Montreal, there's Kingston. So they knew that because there was a naval base here. There's Toronto, there's London. Hamilton's a little place that's starting to thrive. There's Newark, now Niagara on the Lake. Which one of those? Well, the two in ones were out because that meant too much traveling. Mm-hmm. And there's no thought, by the way, that there's a winter here where you can hardly travel anyway. We also want somewhere that is loyal. Toronto has just had this rebellion, this Mackenzie guy. Quite a bit of support in the city, and then crossed over to the new United States and invaded, at least as far as Niagara. Can we trust Toronto? Montreal, well, Montreal and Quebec spoke French and were Catholic, so it's a big problem there. And there is a land border into Montreal, so the various groups in the U.S., particularly the Hunters Lodges, very pro-republic, anti-royalty, looked as though they might be able to get over, which they did actually in 1838. So Montreal is questionable. What are you left with? You're left with this strange little town, which sort of answers all the check marks, but only because all the others didn't.
Okay.
So Kingston in 1840, and actually in 1840, it had suffered a major fire. This area was burned. 6 blocks. There was an explosion on a ship in the harbor. 6 blocks here because everywhere was built of wood.
Oh, yeah.
Outside those 6 blocks is where you get the stone houses, which you could see still standing, some of them. Mm-hmm. Charles Dickens probably summed it up best. He came through here in 1842 on a lecture tour, and he said, well, Kingston is a city which is half burned down and the other half not built up. Oh. That was an exaggeration. And in fact, if they had thought long enough, they would have realized there was a great opportunity, because what happened, it took City Council 5 years, but they then said, everything is built in stone. And that is why this whole downtown area, stone or brick, this whole downtown area is so beautiful now, because there are no, I would just say no wooden buildings.
Yes.
And the old ones have survived. So the possibility was there, but the negatives, there were the other possibilities. We had a naval dockyard right on site in case of invasion. We had an army, a British army in Fort Henry. Now, they were not looking out over the lake. They were looking inland over the road, which is now Highway 2, in case there was another invasion like the 1838 one, which went across the river at Prescott and was planning on coming down. So Kingston, and that way is so far to going west. So Kingston was reasonably safe. And in the 1838 rebellion, there was a militia from Kingston who, by themselves, went across and helped get rid of the invaders. So they knew that there was a military here. They knew it was pretty well defensible. And they also got, rather cleverly, got rid of the one other problem. They, as I mentioned at the start, they wanted a democratic place. And Lord Durham, in his report, had bluntly said, we need to break the family compact. The family compact was a group then of all the leading people, and that included church leaders, business leaders, any other leader you can think of, who were all very friendly with each other. So that when my business ran into legal problems, I simply went to my friend, the judge, and said, can you take over this case in court? And you know what to do with it. And here, our member of parliament, Christopher Hageman, was very much a member of that group, pro-conservative loyalist. He was also a lawyer. So they appointed him to the Court of Queen's Bench. And that got him right out of any political, legal. And so the family compact disappeared from here. Oh, okay. So it looks as though it's pretty good. You've got a town which is in the middle, militarily defended, loyal. We have a strong Anglican church. Mm-hmm. What they didn't look at really was commerce and business. What was going to keep Kingston going? It basically was a town for the transshipment of goods coming from